Ladies and gentlemen, from the Microsoft Theater here in downtown Los Angeles, brought to you by Shawn Porter Promotions.
What's up, everybody? About to do this recap with my boy Shawn Zittel, and you are watching Shawn Zittel on YouTube.
What's up, everybody? The less charismatic introduction, but it's your man Shawn Zittel holding it down on the PorterWay Podcast, doing a simulcast with my man, the two-time champion, Showtime, Shawn Porter. Shawn, man, what are your initial thoughts on Naoya Inoue getting that 6th round knockout against Nery this morning?
Listen, man, I'm gonna be honest. So when I saw Nery fight Brandon Figueroa, I saw a guy who was broken mentally. And that to me seemed to be kind of the recipe to beating Nery, was to break him down mentally, and then the physical would go. Naoya gets knocked down in the first round. And I said, whoa. But he kept it together. He it was like he was surviving, fighting back, and being defensive, like simultaneously, which I thought was very impressive. You get a mixture of, it's usually like one of the three. You got somebody who's trying to hold on and hang on and move, or you get somebody who don't know better and just trying to fight back. You know what I mean? Or, you get the guy who's just straight defense and, let me get through this round. He seemed to do a little bit of all three, which I thought was very impressive. And, understanding Nery to have he came into the game in the US when he debuted out here. He came in out here having known to have some crazy power, So when that first punch lands, I'm like, this might be something. But excuse me. But anyway, as he that name monster that he carries, he personifies that word exactly. And I just thought that after that knockdown, round by round, moment by moment, it was like he just started to take over, either physically, with the feet, with the hand speed, with the movement. It was beautiful, a building process. I got a great question for you, and I'm gonna wait to get to mine. But those were my initial thoughts. What were your initial thoughts?
Man, well, great points you made, because you're right. He just started to use his whole toolkit and all his gifts, right? And in the beginning, he's loading up. I think he might have wanted to knock this guy out in 1 or 2 rounds, because he did that to Emmanuel Rodriguez from Puerto Rico, who was the last guy that really talked trash about him and got at his dad and everything. So he might have been loading up on a home run and got caught with a shot. But to your point about how everything got better, the feet, the defense, the positioning, the offense, everything, like we talked about Haney Garcia a couple weeks ago, and yourself and Floyd Mayweather and a lot of experts mentioned how the right hand was too low, and it never really got shored up in that fight. And I'm curious what you think about this, but to your point about how everything improved after the knockdown, it looked like he made the right adjustments he needed to across the board. He still leaves that chin up sometimes, but he's so explosive and so athletic that he's getting away with it. But also at the same time, I did feel like he started to fight out of the high guard more and more. And there were instances throughout the fight where he kept the phone on the hook. He kept the phone on the hook. And,
hold the phone. He
held the phone. He held the phone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what'd you think about that?
Yeah. This is the very first fight of Inoue's that I've watched, where I watched the entire fight. I kind of skipped through most of the corners. I usually I like to see the break. I like to hear what's going on in the corners, but obviously knowing English wasn't coming, I just skip past it. But my thing, why I'm pointing that out, is I like to read it all, and I can read it all in real time. In real time, I can know your body language. I can know if you're tired. I can know what your energy is like. I mean, kind of the list goes on. The first round, I said, whoa, this is the first time I think Inoue's been in the ring with somebody just as explosive as him, and this unorthodox timing and rhythm that Naoya has. I said, this might be the first time he's in the ring seeing that against himself, and he got caught in the first round. I think because of that, he's used to being explosive and being able to get away with certain things. and it caught up with him in this fight. I know our boy Andy tweeted, he texts like that's the only thing people gonna talk about. I want to fast forward past it because of the way he recovered from that punch and the way he conducted himself after that punch. And then of course, like we've been saying, the way he continued to manage the fight after that. That was one thing that stuck out to me, was that both guys were really explosive in and out. They both were kind of like coming in with the same punches and missing with the same punches. One orthodox, one southpaw, of course. But it just seemed like this was a mirroring fight, which is cool because when it's a mirroring fight, you get to truly see who's the better fighter and who's more prepared and who's been training and who's more confident and who's got the heart and who's got the will, and the list goes on. And we really saw this like in a matter of 6 rounds. We really saw Naoya like kind of take over, and I just thought that was super impressive.
Yeah, well, he believes in himself to such a great degree. It borders on arrogance, like a lot of great fighters, like Floyd Mayweather and Muhammad Ali, and a lot of the great Eric El Terrible Morales, who's behind.
Listen, my man pulled out the showboating and all that kind. He pulled out in the 4th round. I said, now you're a bad boy.
Yep.
When you at the top of when you at the tippy top and you pulling that kind of stuff out this early, usually you want to know your opponent's broken down before you do those kind of those things. And I was like, yo, my man's confident. He know exactly what he's designed to do, and he's doing it.
Well, yeah, because I said on the PorterWay yesterday on the show, I said Nery for the first time is going to fight someone more talented than him in that mid-range and all that, with the pulls, with the speed and the placement and the time and the power. He's going to meet his match. But to your point, Inoue for one of the first times, since Donaire, ran into a guy that could not match him in some of those areas, but test him and challenge him in some of those areas. And that's why Nery was able to do that. And he's like, oh, okay, so now this is what I'm dealing with. And then he raised the levels. And as the fight went on, Nery just couldn't keep up with that. But the one thing with Inoue that really strikes me when I watch him is just the wow factor. He's one of the most wow factor fighters I've ever watched.
It's real.
Yeah.
Like that wow is real. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, yo, this dude is wow.
That's what I wanted to get your thoughts on, man, because you've seen it all from fighting all the guys like Usyk and Spence and Crawford, and just talk about that wow factor and what you think it would have been like to actually have to go up against it in the ring.
Yeah, I think more so as an amateur, because as a pro, nobody had really gotten off on me at a rate that they could really feel comfortable. I even think that Terrence, I love how he said, yo, in the first round. So he ends up picking me up in the first round, right? And he said that kind of like for him, it set the tone for the rest of the fight for him. And he knew, like he said in the first round, I picked you up, and I knew I got you. And I was like, damn, like that's messed up, But at the same time, he knew that he couldn't get jazzy. He knew he couldn't get funky, because he knew, like he still knew me. You know what I mean?
Inoue was getting funky and jazzy after round 2.
Yeah, like, but after 3 or 4 rounds, my man Inoue in there getting funky with it. And it's like he just knows. And to me, that's sexy. For you to know, like, I got you. There's nothing you could do with it. I've been in the ring with just about everybody that I fought, and I knew there was points where I got to where I knew I had them. I think maybe the only one. I'll tell you what, 2. This is 2 that come right off the top of my head. So Terrence is the only fighter I've ever been in the ring with where I was like, well, I can't say ever, but definitely one of the only fighters that I've been in the ring with where I did not have a moment where I felt comfortable, like I'm good, I got it. Mm-hmm. The other one, this one might surprise you, that Danny Garcia. I thought against Danny, I was going to get to a point where I was going to start to take off.
2 counterpunchers. I don't think that's a coincidence. 2 counterpunchers. Very
true. I felt like I was taking off on the kid, right? And it was like he was like, yo, wait, where you going? I remember that happened in that fight, and I was like, y'all thought he was gonna be gone, and he's still here. And I think that's why that fight ended up being as good as it was. Danny has more heart than a lot of people give him credit for, you know? But usually what happens when you recognize that, you can do the things that Inoue did against Nery today, where you start to drop the hands and you start to really get funky with it. But to see that happen in like 3 or 4 rounds, to me, was amazing.
And he did the same thing to Stephen Fulton.
Yeah.
And what he did to Donaire and knocking him out in 2 rounds of the rematch means he's not only beaten the 3 best opponents he's fought, he's, destroyed them in Nery, Fulton, and Donaire. And so, but you brought up Bud with I did actually, but then you expanded on it with Bud and Inoue. Okay, so I'm gonna give you, Mike, a quick comparison of Bud and Inoue, a little metaphor.
I think you leaned into my question, by the way. So go ahead.
And then I want your comparison of the two of them too. But there's a little, because there's an argument over pound for pound number 1 between these two, right? And there's a really great argument either way. And I'm gonna take you back to 2009, 2010 in the NBA. And you remember the puppets, LeBron James and the Kobe Bryant puppets?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so around that time there was this debate: whose league is it? Is it Kobe Bryant or is it LeBron James? And Kobe Bryant, like Terrence Crawford, was older, right? Yeah. And even though Bud actually looked as explosive as ever against Spence, but stick with me for a minute.
Yeah, I got you.
He's like number 24 Kobe, in his 30s. It's still my league, right? Like Bud, I'm still number 1 pound for pound, youngin', right? But this guy is coming and he's on his tail. And Bud, like Kobe, is the more savvy guy. Triple pump fake, little slither, little window, get the shot off, hand it, no problem, right? Yeah. LeBron is just coming down the lane and jumping 10 feet above the rim and just jack. And that to me right now is like the LeBron Kobe. That it's like the 2010, that's Inoue and Bud right now.
I
Bud
love
being
that,
Kobe,
man.
and Inoue being LeBron. Just this.
That is a hell of a that's a hell of an analogy, and I hope that catches fire. And I hope that it catches fire for you, because I really do feel when it comes to expanding the audience of boxing, to me, and this is what I've been trying to do with the PorterWay Podcast, you got to get people from other entertainment fields, other sports, talking about boxing. And that's why, I don't know if you've caught this before, but when I use analogies on the show, I always use a football analogy, or I always use a basketball analogy, because I know people, y'all are connected to basketball, y'all are connected to football, y'all can catch the rhythm of this. And guess what? For those who are just catching this podcast for the first time, and you hear me give you a football analogy, it helps you connect to this boxing game that you may not know a whole lot about. You know what I mean? So that's a hell of an analogy right there. And I think you're spot on with that. You got the Kobe Bryant, who gonna be great until his last game, and then you got the LeBron that still got to prove some things to the States, you know what I mean? And prove some things to some people. But while he's doing it, he ain't doing nothing but dum, dum, dum. And that's sexy, which leads me to my question: who's doing it better?
Like who is pound for pound?
No. Who's both of them are doing it at the highest level, but who's doing it better? Terrence Crawford or Naoya Inoue?
It's very that's why I love my comparison. Like it's like
because you're only as good as your last performance.
Inoue's more active. He's the younger guy fighting more often. Right? Yeah. Bud's fighting once a year these days, right? Yeah. So Inoue's more active. He's but there's a sense that his flaws with the chin up and stuff. Bud's chin has been up sometimes too. You caught him with some right hands in mid to close range because of that. But it feels like that's a more glaring flaw, but he has more glaring, overpowering strengths that make up for it. Yeah. It's really hard, man. It's a shame they're not the same size. I feel like head to head, I'd maybe give an inch to Bud, because if they were the same size pound for pound, I'd probably give an edge to Bud, because I feel like he could take advantage of that glaring flaw in a way 99.9% of other fighters can't, because his ability to see everything and punch in between your punches. Inoue is a masterful counterpuncher. Bud is an even better one. Mm-hmm. And that might be what would be the difference if they were in a mythical same size fight.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Has Naoya shown the ability to fight in multiple different styles?
I think so. And actually, I'm curious if when he fights bigger men, if we ever see him fully put his boxing shoes on. Because his power is so good at these weights that he could he could be a boxer puncher, but he's getting the knockout. But I think if he ever needed to, he has the foot speed, the hand speed, the jab, the punch arsenal, the reflexes that he could really let's say Brandon Figueroa was on his ass and he couldn't hurt him like he does everybody else. If he put his boxing brain on, he has the tool set to outbox him, like by just moving around the ring and using the jab and taking what's there. But I do think so. I think like we saw with Canelo, he switches stances, he switches positions, and he okay, when he knocked out Nery, he tightened up the stance with his back on the ropes, doubled up on the hook, made it even shorter the second time. So he definitely has different looks and it's not all just speed and power, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He has different positions and stances that he defends and punches out of. So yeah, I think he's got different styles.
I know everybody has been talking about how he basically, when he punches, he brings that hand down or whatever. So I always call it the swimming effect, where it's like your hands aren't coming back. And this is, kind of this is the true way to box or whatever. I know everybody's talked about that. Another thing that I picked up on while I was watching him, and again, like as a analyst, I'm always trying to critique a fighter. And especially when I say it on air, I know a lot of these fighters are gonna go and watch the fight back. And so I almost want to give you the advice while I'm analyzing you in the midst of your fight. Inoue, to me, he stands a little too erect. Think that if he had a little more bend in his waist, a little more bend in his knees, he might actually be a little more explosive than he already is, and he might actually be able to be a little more mobile than he already is as well. And the other thing that I saw is that his foot is really turned out to the right. And the reason why I point that out, again, limiting his mobility. When your foot is out this way, it means your entire foot is on the canvas, opposed to when you have an angle and the bend in the bend in the waist brings that foot up a little bit, and you've got some air under that heel, puts you more on the balls of your feet. Now, anybody watching this that knows anything about sports, knows anything about athleticism, there's no athleticism on your heels. There's no athleticism on the middle of your feet. All the athleticism that you use is on your toes, on the balls of your feet. So in essence, what I'm saying is, when he's like this, he has to literally, it's in minutes, like the smallest of seconds. I don't know, what do you call that?
Milliseconds.
It's in milliseconds, but he literally has to shift before he moves. Go back and watch his fight, watch it in slow motion, and you'll be able to see a shift in his weight before he makes his moves. If he's able to do something crazy like fix that and be in position, that he doesn't have that millisecond of shifting, you kill that millisecond. It's the same thing when we're talking about cars racing. The fastest cars, what have they tried to do? They've tried to figure out ways, how can we minimize the start? How can we get that thing to go? The best way to get this explosive young kid, fast kid to explode, make that small adjustment right there, and there's no telling what he could do.
Every fighter, even all the great ones, have flaws. So
absolutely,
I would love for him to hear that, because he's capable of, like, you're saying he stays too erect. He bends his knees just fine whenever he feels like it.
Whenever he feels like
it. You know what I mean? So and if you're not getting better, you may be getting worse, right? You're either going one way or the other. And you don't want to fall. You're so dominant, but you don't want to overlook the little tiny things that you are still doing wrong, right? And he is kind of like Roy Jones in that he's just so explosive and athletic that he's going to get away with it almost every time for now, but still it's something to look at for him down the road.
But man, listen, outside of that, man, and especially given the opponent he was in the ring with, someone who, is a worthy challenger. We saw the first round that I thought that, that kind of, anyway, he weathered that adversity And the other thing that I think probably the last thing I'll say about him is a masterful thinker as well. You know, that what we translate as confidence is him actually being able to think and really slow this thing down. This thing moves extremely fast. And when you're able to slow it down, you're able to think that fast and that sharply and figure it out and make the right moves and do the right things. He hit Nery with some right hands that I saw. I said, man, he knew, thinking he knew that that's the punch that to throw and when to throw it. There's things we do when we train, and I always call it ABCs. We know our ABCs. We know jab, we know slip, we know the right hand's coming, we know we know the ABCs. But when you're able to think A, F, B, G, C, D, and just go back and forth simultaneously like that, and I can look you in your eyes and I can tell like this dude is just running these numbers so fast. Sexy, man.
Do I have you for one more topic of this Inoue stuff, Shawn? Or do you got family business you got to tend to?
One more, let's go.
All right, I'm gonna go for the 2-for-1 then. What is it that makes this man have the power he does? Where's that I mean, you look at the calves, they're there, but like you could say technique, but I feel like there's guys that you could work on his version of throwing punches, whatever his technique is, all you want. You're not going to generate that kind of force.
Yeah.
And also the other part, you know, a lot of people would point out it's a lazy comparison because they have two different types of styles and mechanics completely. But there hasn't been an electric fighter coming up from 18 and 22 and 108 since the man you used to spar in his prime, Manny Pacquiao. So what makes this man have this power he has? And, you know, again, two different fighters, two different styles, but is there any Pacquiao-like qualities about Inoue?
I was going to say, I want to crush that right now. If you call that a lazy comparison, you're very incorrect. They fight very, very similar. You go back and watch their fight. Watch how Inoue releases his right hand. It's almost like this jumping, this almost slight lunging, explosive. That's when we talking about explosive punching. That's what I'm talking about. How you use your legs to generate the power, and you use your entire body, and you come in a very correct way that you're not out of position, but also a very unorthodox way that guy don't know you're coming. That's what Manny was known for, especially when I sparred with him. He was known for being very explosive, coming in with that straight left, lining it up, and to the point of your question, the power. And what we said on the PorterWay Podcast this week, precision, accuracy. And that's why this young kid, Inoue, is as strong and powerful and is as electric as he is because he has precision and timing and accuracy that is almost bar none.
Yeah, I think only other guys that come to mind right away are Canelo and Tank.
At the moment, yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I'm not. Boots, maybe, but Boots hasn't quite yet displayed that level of precision. He may. I mean, he has against guys like Villa, but we got to see it at a higher level, you know.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And of course, Terrence Crawford.
Crawford, yes.
Yeah, I really, you know, now I'm going all the way up as high as Tyson Fury. I don't know if Tyson is as like, you know,
sharp
precise
and explosive. No.
So, nonetheless, man, I enjoy watching the fight. I know it's been a lot of crap about Inoue in the last couple of weeks about me and the whole Inoue thing and all that kind of stuff. Literally, not for any reason, but this is the first time that I was like, let me check this kid out. I checked him out. He's got the goods. Not like I need to sign off on him or anything like that, but for anybody who was wondering how I felt about Naoya Inoue, you just found out on Shawn Zittel on YouTube.
Actually, they found out on the PorterWay YouTube, but yeah, they did find out. Thank you, Shawn. Later, brother.
On the next one.